හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 28th of February 2024. Power to all. Government ready for devolution of power backed by a potential Senate to be ratified via a referendum. Second review. IMF staff team scheduled to visit Sri Lanka for the next $330 million review under the External Fund Facility Program. Sabri lectures UNHRC. National unity and reconciliation are the government's key priorities, says the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister to the UNHRC. Divest arrest. The Court of Appeal temporarily suspends the divestiture of Sri Lanka Telecom and Lanka hospitals amidst alleged procedural irregularities.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Ndivari Amuata and Mahesh Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to First at 9, where your one-stop shop, where we bring you all the latest with regard to local, international sports, whether any story that matters to you, we bring it to you. Very good evening, Indivari.
A very warm welcome to all of you and good evening, Mahesh. Once again, we're back with the very latest from around Sri Lanka and across the world. Of course, we have some developments, and what's interesting is that there is discussion, especially from the highest authority, from the executive himself, about assurances of devolution of power.
You know what that means, right? It means exactly there's going to be elections, because this is a word that actually kept coming on and on during elections time. We have heard this word saying devolution of power and implementing the 13th Amendment and all.
Certainly hope that the intentions are genuine and clear, and that the national question is somehow addressed, because we have been talking about this for decades now. Plus, we also move on to talk about the heat and the IMF visit, the second review of the Extended Fund Facility. A visit is anticipated, and just today, Kristalina Georgieva, the chief of the International Monetary Fund, also spoke about requirements for debt restructuring, not just in countries like Sri Lanka, but other countries that have fallen into this debt crisis. And a stumbling block when it comes to the divestiture of state-owned enterprises. So we're going to talk about all these stories during the bulletin today.
Indeed. So let's begin. Well, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the government is in favor of devolution of powers in the country, stressing, however, that it would not interfere with police powers at present, leaving them open for future consideration.
Commenting on calls for a secondary board akin to a Senate, the president said that the current government does not oppose such actions from being implemented, although, however, such an initiative would need to coincide with the framing of a constitution, potentially requiring a referendum.
Now, he made these remarks at the Religions to Reconcile National Inter-Religious Symposium held in Colombo today.
The Religions to Reconcile National Interreligious Symposium, organised by the National Peace Council of Sri Lanka, was held today at the BMICH in Colombo.
දැන් තියෙන්නේ සහජීවනයේ අන්තිම කොටස. මම ද්‍රවිඩ දේශපාලන පක්ෂත් මන්ත්‍රීතුමන්ලා එක්කත් මේ ගැන සාකච්ඡා කරගෙන යනවා. අපිට ඉතුරු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ ප්‍රශ්න ස්වල්පය. ඒ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳ ගන්න. ඊළඟට තියෙන්නේ බලය බෙදා හැරීම. අපි පොලිස් බලතල වලට අත ගහන්න යන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක දැන් තියෙන තත්ත්වයේ තියන්න පස්සේ කතා කරන්න පුළුවන් ඒක. ඉඩම් පිළිබඳ ජාතික ඉඩම් කොමිසමේ පන්නත ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. තුන්වෙනි ලයිස්තුවේ තියෙන ඒ අනික් විෂයන් බාර දීම ගැන අපිට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. මං කියන්නේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අනික් පක්ෂ එක්කත් එකඟ වෙන්න වෙයි. අපිට තුනෙන් දෙකක් ලබා ගන්න. තව ඉල්ලීමක් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ සෙනත් සභාවක්. ඒකට ආණ්ඩුවේ විරුද්ධත්වයක් නැහැ.
ඒ වගේම මේ අතර මේ ඊයේ පෙරේද අපි දැක්කා ආගම්වාදයේ උත්සන්න විශේෂයෙන්ම කුරුන්දි විහාර ගැන මම සඳහන් කරන්න ඕනේ. ඒකයි මේ රටේ සෑම පුරවැසියෙකුටම ආණ්ඩුවට. දැන් අද එකඟත්වයට පැමිණලා තිනවා. බුද්ධ ශාසන අමාත්‍යාංශයත් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් විශාල ක්‍රියාදාමයක් කළා. ඒ සීමාවෙන් පිට බෞද්ධ පන්සලකටත් හින්දු කෝවිලකටත් පන්සලක් සහ කෝවිලක් හදා ගැනීමට ඉඩම් ලබා දීමට එක ළඟ තමයි මේ හින්දු කෝවිලයි පන්සලයි ඇති වෙන්නේ. ඉතින් ඒ නිසා මේ වගේ දේවල් අපිට සහජීවනයෙන් කටයුතු කරන්න ඕනේ. ලේ හලන්න ඕනේ නැහැ, මරා ගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ.
හැබැයි මේ එකක්වත් කතා කරලා වැඩක් තියනවාද? මහජන ඡන්දයෙන් පත්වෙච්ච නියෝජිතයන් පළාත් සභාවල හා පළාත් පාලන ආයතනවල නැතිනම් කාටද බලය බෙදන්නේ? එතකොට පළාත් පාලන ආයතන 334ක් විතර තියෙනවා. නීතිය අනුව මේ මැතිවරණය අනිවාර්යෙන් පවත්වන්න ඕනේ ගිය අවුරුද්දේ. පැවැත්වුවේ නැහැ.
කවුරු හරි කල්පනා කරනවා නම් ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ මේ රටේ ජනතාවට හිමි වෙලා තියෙන ජනතා පරමාධිපත්‍යයේ කොටසක් වන ඡන්දය කල්දාන්න ඡන්දය වෙනුවට වෙනත් ගේම් ප්ලේ කරන්න ඒක මේ රටේ සාමයට අනිවාර්ය වශයෙන් බාධා වෙනවා කියන එකත් මම මේලා කියන්න කැමතියි. දැනුත් ජනතාව බලාගෙන ඉන්නේ තමන්ගේ කැමැත්ත ප්‍රකාශ කරගන්න අවස්ථාවක් ලැබෙනකම්.
Meanwhile, President Ranil Wickremesinghe emphasized Sri Lanka's dedication to maintaining and consolidating strategic position, which will be aimed at ensuring the absence of major power rivalries and upholding freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean region.
Now, joining the Phase 3 of the Pathfinder Indian Ocean Security Conference held in Colombo today, he also emphasized the importance of addressing emerging developments in the region amidst complex geopolitical dynamics.
Phase 3 of the Pathfinder Indian Ocean Security Conference kicked off in Colombo today. The two-day conference will see the participation from delegates representing several nations, underscoring the significance of the Indian Ocean and its role in global security and supply chain resilience.
In the last 5 years, we have come to the forefront for different reasons. One thing else happened. The Ukraine war, the sanctions imposed by the West did not result in the collapse of the Russian economy, just shifted eastward. Road to Central Asia lies through Iran. Third one is India. India itself become one of the largest economies and Indian market will keep expanding till late 21st century. So look at the potential for India, which everyone has recognized. And next is Indonesia. And finally South Africa. So you can see how the new power balance have come. The majority of the BRICS are in this region. These are the ones who are challenging the supremacy of the dollar. Then within it, what are we committed? Sri Lanka is committed to, with its strategic position to ensure there is no big power rival and the freedom of navigation. The freedom of navigation has led us now to take part in the operations in Prosperity Guardian in the Red Sea. Because as you see now, as the rates go up, Suez Canal is important for us. During the 6-day war, when the canal was closed, for 10 years, the Colombo port suffered. So we have to ensure that there is, as far as we are concerned, freedom of navigation exists there. The main issues have been the Somali pirates and now the Houthis. Houthis themselves, terrorist organization, because we have recognized the Yemen government. Other issue which is now coming up is the undersea domain. As far as security is concerned, how do you deal with that?
A staff team from the International Monetary Fund is expected to visit Sri Lanka next week to conduct a second review under the Extended Fund Facility Program, scheduled to be commenced on the 7th of March.
Now, this development was revealed today by the State Minister of Finance, Wickremesinghe, during a media briefing organized by the President's Media Centre.
He expressed his confidence towards a positive review with the IMF and added that he is hopeful of an expeditious disbursement of the third tranche amounting to around $330 million.
In September of 2023, a team from the International Monetary Fund, headed by Senior Mission Chief Peter Brewer, arrived in Sri Lanka to conduct the first review under the $2.9 billion Extended Fund Facility Program approved by the IMF Executive Board in March of 2023. The review commenced on the 14th of September and lasted for 2 weeks, ending on the 27th of September. However, the second tranche, which was about $330 million, was not disbursed immediately after the conclusion of the review, as the IMF highlighted shortfalls in government revenue generation and the necessity to improve tax administration. After more than 2 months in December, the IMF, which have since observed that Sri Lanka's performance under the program has been satisfactory and all quantitative performance criteria for end June, except expenditure arrears, indicative targets and tax revenues being met, approved the second tranche to Sri Lanka, bringing the total IMF financial support dispersed to the island nation to about $670 million. This marked the conclusion of the first review under the EFF program. This being the background story, the second review of the program is expected to be held in March of this year. According to State Minister of Finance Wickremesinghe, an IMF staff team is expected to arrive in Sri Lanka next week to conduct the second review.
Any update on the IMF third tranche?
The second review will commence from the 7th of March, and we are very confident that will be a smoother review than the first review, because the first review, it was the initial stages of the implementation of the policy decisions the government had. අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා දෙවනි සමාලෝචනය අවසන් වුණාට පස්සේ අපිට තුන්වෙනි වාරිකය ඒ කාර්ය මණ්ඩල එකඟතාවයට ආවට පස්සේ ලබා ගැනීමේ හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා.
Given an election year this year, do you see when the targets are a bit difficult, given that you will have to reverse some of the tight fiscal policies, do you see, you will have to go to IMF and renegotiate the terms?
Well, I think you should ask that question from people who are talking about a reversal. Except the government, all the other political parties are talking about a reversal of the IMF program as well as the policies which were introduced. But I must very clearly mention, the country is in the correct path. This is the way forward. It is not that we say, but the results and the figures have shown that we are on the correct path, and the international community appreciates the determination of the government, the implementation of the reform agendas, and the results what we have got. Secondly, if you think of a reversal of any other policies, or if you think of a diversion of a policy just to gain popularity among people, I can only assure you, we will very soon fall back to a 10 or 100 times worse situation than what we experienced in 2022.
State Minister of Finance, Wickremesinghe there. Now, International Monetary Fund Chief Kristalina Georgieva states that she wants to shine a spotlight on the timeline and predictability of debt restructuring process at the next meeting of the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable in April. Georgieva told Reuters that she hoped to make progress on the issue when the roundtable, which includes debtor countries and officials and private creditors, meet in Washington in April this year during the spring meetings of the IMF and the World Bank. Georgieva declined to give specific timelines but said that panel participation would work to define specific steps in a debt restructuring process and then set a maximum time for completing that step. Despite long delays in the ongoing debt restructuring process, Georgieva said that she observed some progress, noting that Zambia has in the final steps of its agreement with creditors, and Ghana was also making progress, as were countries such as Sri Lanka that were not covered by the G20 Common Framework.
Addressing the 55th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri assured that national unity and reconciliation remain key priorities of the government of Sri Lanka. He added that the president has subsequently outlined a development plan for the north and east to achieve these targets, while reiterating Sri Lanka's rejection of resolutions 46/1 and 51/1 as they focus on external evidence gathering mechanisms. The Sri Lankan foreign minister urged members of the UN Human Rights Council to not allow short-term political gains or domestic vote bank politics to overtake the work of the Council. He also highlighted that the Council's approach to the humanitarian crisis in Gaza will be another litmus test for its credibility, and urged the Council to prioritize depoliticization, constructive dialogue and multilateral cooperation whilst avoiding inherently maintaining double standards.
The 55th regular session of the United Nations Human Rights Council commenced on Monday in Geneva in Switzerland. The fifth meeting of the UNHRC session was held yesterday, during which Sri Lanka Minister of Foreign Affairs, President's Council Ali Sabri addressed the Council via a pre-recorded video statement.
As the international community is aware, over the past year, while economic recovery was a foremost priority to Sri Lanka, the government continued to take tangible steps in the interest of national unity and reconciliation as key priorities. Sri Lanka has long placed high importance of national unity and reconciliation. In such context, President Ranil Wickremesinghe has outlined his vision for the way forward on reconciliation efforts and rapid development plans for the North and the Eastern province. We are regularly reviewing the progress on implementation of this vision at the highest administrative level, particularly in relation to the work of the Sri Lanka's domestic mechanism. Sri Lanka reiterates its categorical rejection of the extensive external evidence gathering mechanism established following the resolution 46/1 and 51/1, which will have a wide-ranging legal and political implication for all countries, contradicting the founding principles of the Council. I urge urge the members of this council not to allow short-term political gains or, as it's now been termed, as domestic vote bank politics to overtake the important work of this council. The council is already traversing the same path as its predecessor, the Commission on Human Rights, with disproportionate scrutiny and focus on countries of the global south, with a host of selective country-specific resolutions and intrusive mechanisms. The council, established to safeguard and protect the human rights of all, continue to become increasingly politicized and divisive. We encourage dialogue and constructive cooperation rather than political confrontation, which I'm sure will better serve as to rebuild the trust in the world which needs. It would be remiss of me if I do not refer to the existential threat to the people of Gaza. How the Council approaches the human rights crisis in Gaza will be another litmus test to the credibility as the foremost international human rights body. It is crucial and timely for this Council to reclaim its original mandate by prioritizing depoliticization, embrace constructive dialogue and multilateral cooperation. Only by doing so we can uphold the integrity of the international human rights framework and effectively address the dire humanitarian situations such as the one in Gaza. We reiterate the importance of avoiding double standards being practiced at this council. The suffering of innocent civilians must not be overlooked in the pursuit of political agenda, and urgent action is needed to alleviate the plight.
Well, in another headline story, now the Court of Appeal issued an interim order suspending all measures regarding divestiture of Sri Lanka Telecom and Lanka hospitals until the 12th of March.
The order was issued upon consideration of a writ petition filed by Lanka Mobile's SARL and Petigo Comercio International on behalf of SLT, and another filed by Lanka Leasing Holdings Limited and HIMS International on behalf of Lanka Hospitals. The petitioning companies complained that despite having submitted all required documents to the EOIs for the transfer of 50.23% of the state-owned shares in SLT and 51.34% of the shares in Lanka Hospital, the Cabinet Subcommittee assigned to the restructuring of state-owned enterprises rejected the applications without stating reasons.
Now, following the suspension order, the court also issued a notice for the respondents named in the petition, including President Ranil Wickremesinghe, State Minister of Finance Wickremesinghe, member of the Cabinet Subcommittee and the Attorney General, to appear before the courts on the 12th of March to present their submissions. Well, indeed, we're talking about the weather. It seems to be really hot all throughout the country. Now, the Department of Meteorology stated that the prevailing extreme temperature is likely to continue for more than a month.
Now, health officials have urged the general public to remain hydrated and consume more water and liquids to avoid any negative health effects following this development.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Education today instructed all respective school authorities to refrain from making students participate in strenuous outdoor activities until the 1st of March as the prevailing high atmospheric temperature are expected to rise further.
As a heat wave sweeps through the country, Sri Lanka continues to sustain heat advisories to the public as the country is currently experiencing higher than normal temperatures coupled with high humidity levels, resulting in potentially threatening health impacts. As a result, the Department of Meteorology on numerous occasions issued heat advisories, cautioning the general public against exposure to high heat, which can result in serious health implications. According to the latest data from the Met Department, the Colombo district reported the highest temperature over the past 24 hours, recording a maximum temperature of 36.8 degrees Celsius. In addition, health officials added that the northwestern, western and southern provinces, as well as the Ratnapura district, will continue to experience a high temperature felt on the human body. Health officials further stressed the importance of monitoring the conditions of minors amidst the sweltering heat. Concurrently, the Ministry of Education today instructed all respective school authorities to refrain from making students participate in strenuous outdoor activities until the 1st of March, as the prevailing high atmospheric temperatures are expected to rise further. The ministry further advised the suspension of all sports day events, sports practices and any other scheduled outdoor activities. School administrations are required to comply with the health guidelines issued by the Health Ministry and the Education Ministry. Despite these warnings, however, several schools in Colombo continue to hold outdoor activities today, disregarding the guidelines issued by the respective authorities. The Ministry of Health recently released a set of guidelines aimed at ensuring the protection of the public amidst the prevailing extreme heat. Accordingly, the health officials highlighted the necessity to remain hydrated and increase the consumption of more water and liquid foods. The advisory also urged the limitation of strenuous outdoor activities and frequent breaks in the shade, while also advising of the need to wear lightweight and white or light-colored clothing.
වැඩියෙන්ම හිරු රශ්මිය වැටෙන්නේ සාමාන්‍යයෙන් 11 ඉඳලා 2:00 වගේ කාල පරාසයක් තුල. අර කාල පරාසය තුල හිරු එළියට නිරාවරණය වෙන්න අවම වෙන පරිදි වැඩමුර සකස් කරගන්න පුළුවන් නම් මං හිතන්නේ වඩාත්ම වැදගත් වෙනවා. අවදානම් කාණ්ඩ කුඩා දරුවෝ ගර්භණී මාතාවන් දීර්ඝකාලීන ලෙඩ රෝග තියන අය මරණයට පවපත් වෙන්න පුළුවන් අර heat stroke කියන එක හරියට අපි කළමනාකරණය නොකරගත්තොත්
කුඩාම දරුවන්ට දාඩිය බිබිලි ලොකු කුෂ්ටියක් වගේ එන්න පුළුවන්. දවසට කීප වතාවක් ජලයෙන් සෝදන එක සහ තෙතරදි කෑල්ලකින් ඇඟ පිහිදන එක වගේ දේවල් සුදුසුයි.
Speaking further in this regard, the meteorological department said that the existing situation is likely to continue till May of this year.
සුළං ප්‍රවාහයේ අඩුව එක තමයි ඇත්තට මේ ලොකුම ප්‍රශ්නේ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ තත්ත්වය අඩු වැඩි වශයෙන් මැයිවල දිවයින හරහා නිර්තික සුළං ප්‍රවාහය ස්ථාපිත වන තුරු මේ තත්ත්වය බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Welcome back to the news. We take you to the Colombo Bourse. The stocks in Colombo continued its patch today and ended higher again, aided by spikes in consumer staples and industrial stocks. The CSE All Share Price Index closed 0.52% higher at 10,678.30, while the S&P SL22 ended 0.06% higher at 3,056.97. LOLC Finance and Lion Brewery PLC were the top gainers on the index, up 2.5% and 4.1% respectively. Trading volume on the index fell to 46.8 million from 108.3 million in the previous session. Equity market turnover, meanwhile, fell to 129, or rather 1.29 billion, I beg your pardon, 1.29 billion rupees from a previous 2.53 billion. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to turnover. In the meantime, foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 167.4 million rupees, and domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 1.2 billion. Now, oil prices pulled back today as the prospect of delays to the U.S. interest rate cuts and a rise in U.S. crude stocks offset a boost from a potential extension of the OPEC Plus supply cuts. Brent crude futures fell by 90 cents or 1.08% to settle at $82.75 a barrel. U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures, meanwhile, was down 92 cents or 1.17% to end at $77.95 a barrel. Fed Governor Michelle Bowman signaled yesterday that they were in no rush to cut U.S. interest rates amid the continuing inflation risks. Meanwhile, the American Petroleum Institute's figures showed an 8.43 million barrel increase in U.S. crude stocks during the past week, while gasoline inventories fell by 3.27 million barrels and distillate stocks fell by 523,000 barrels.
Well, up next is Udishan Jonas from Capital Alliance with some thoughts on the current status of the economy of the country in our next segment, Sri Lanka's economic outlook.
At the Treasury bill auctions held today, we saw the 3-month Treasury bill rates increase by 8 basis points to 9.86% and the 12-month rates increased by 3 basis points to 10.05%. We also saw the Treasury bond rates increase by roughly about 20 to 25 basis points across the yield curve, erasing some of the gains that we saw over the last few weeks. And from a bids received perspective, the Treasury bill bids received fell to about 197 billion from about 250 billion rupees a week ago. Also, from a lending rate perspective, we saw the average weighted prime lending rate fall by 11 basis points to 11.5%. From a deposit rate perspective, we saw banks cut their deposit rates to about 8% on their 1-year deposits, in line with the reduction that was witnessed in the Treasury bill rates over the last few weeks. From a currency perspective, we saw the currency trade at about 310 to 311 rupees to dollar, which is an appreciation of about 3.9% year to date. Also, the government decided to temporarily suspend parate execution on non-performing loans until 15 December 2024. And we believe that this may slow down the expected credit growth that was anticipated to come in the first quarter of 2024. Lending rates may also start edging upwards as banks start to reprice the risk into their lending rates.
Well, let's move on to our corporate affairs segment now in a bid to strengthen the relations between Sri Lanka and France. SLASCOM and the Sri Lanka-France Business Council signed a memorandum of understanding.
Now, the emphasis of this MOU is on advancing trade facilitation, market access and encouraging investments in knowledge and innovation solutions between Sri Lanka and France. With that, here's a look at more corporate news in brief.
In a move to fortify bilateral relations between Sri Lanka and France, SLASCOM and the Sri Lanka-France Business Council recently entered into a memorandum of understanding. Through this collaboration, the two entities aim to cultivate a strong partnership that will unlock new avenues for trade, market access and investment in the areas on technology and innovation that will ultimately benefit both nations. During the event, it was highlighted that this partnership can harness the collective expertise and resources to drive mutual growth and prosperity by creating new opportunities for businesses which in turn contribute to economic growth in both countries. In the meantime, INSEE Cement recognized the achievements made by its business partners at the annual Business Partner Awards 2023. This year's event, themed Unbreakable Bonds, Unstoppable Journey, Our Strength, INSEE, recognized the contributions of business partners towards helping INSEE Cement consistently deliver value to its customers via quality products and services, timely delivery and responsive support. During the event, a total of 34 awards were presented to high-performing business partners, including 11 national awards and 20 regional awards. In other corporate news, the 2022 annual report of Selinco Life was adjudged the best in the finance services and insurance category at the Sustainability Reporting Awards presented by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants recently. The ACCA recognizes annual reports which clearly demonstrate the entity's policies and long-term objectives. The annual reports competing for these awards are scored on completeness, credibility and communication in terms of the content relating to sustainability reporting.
Now, in a proud moment for Derana Macro Entertainment, one of our senior journalists, Casey Saranga, was named the joint winner of the independent category Community Digital Storytelling Festival held in Dhaka recently.
Yes, now this underscores the versatility and the expertise that makes up the competency of the #1 news channel of Sri Lanka.
Seasoned journalist and the general manager of news and current affairs at TV Derana, Casey Saranga, emerged triumphant at an international media festival held in Bangladesh recently. He was named the joint winner of the independent category at the first ever Community Digital Storytelling Festival held in Dhaka recently, alongside Iga Gudas from Poland. The short docufilm titled Cool Consolation, directed by Saranga, was critically acclaimed at the CDSTF.
And that's it from tonight's edition of First at 9 on Ada Derana 24. I'm Indivari Amwat.
I'm Mahesh Johnny. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.